Welcome to NODEHAUS Film School. This is the first part of a series of training videos we use here at NODEHAUS, an animation studio, production company, and video agency based right here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. For the rest of the playlist, click the button in the corner or check out the links in the description where you can join our Discord, access templates and downloads at our Gumroad. But for now, let's tackle visual storytelling. The first thing I want to tackle is understanding the basics of visual storytelling, because whether you're joining the team as an animator, motion graphic designer, filmmaker, or otherwise, at the heart of our work is storytelling. And at the heart of storytelling is drama. Now, drama can carry a lot of other emotions with it, of course, love, anger, jealousy. But all storytelling is drama, and all drama is conflict. Conflict between two characters or two forces. That relationship between the two sides is what defines drama. So when we think about visual storytelling, we have to be focused on drama, and drama is based in relationships in conflict. Now, there are two relationships you need to be thinking about intuitively as a visual storyteller. The relationship between your subject and the world around them, and the relationship between your subject and the audience. Let's dive into the first one, the relationship between your subject and the world around them. The two major tools at our disposal for visually depicting this relationship is size and proximity. Let's talk about size first, because of course, size matters. This one is pretty straightforward. If something is bigger, it's more powerful. If I draw two people and one of them is bigger, a power dynamic exists between them immediately, and we understand the bigger person to be more powerful. A great example of this comes from Pixar's The Incredibles. Director Brad Bird got a lot of feedback on the scene where Bob and Helen Parr were arguing. Particularly, people felt that Bob was being too mean, maybe even abusive. Brad first thought that he would have to soften the dialogue, but he realized it was just because Bob Parr was visually big in the scene. And that made people feel like he was overpowering his wife, Helen. So to solve this, all he had to do was make Helen extend herself with her elastical powers in order to tower over Bob. And after that, he never got any notes about this problem. This balance in their visual size on screen balanced the power dynamic between the two. That is the power of size. Size establishes power, and power is central to conflict. Now that's a good one-on-one character versus character comparison. So now let's look at size being used to demonstrate the power between multiple characters, and size being used to demonstrate the power between a character and their world. The first one character versus multiple characters. Right off the bat, one versus many implies the side with more people is more powerful, right? Understand that what's really being presented visually are two groups. I'll color in this frame from Shaolin Soccer. In this shot, one group is bigger than the other. Boom, immediately, a power dynamic. Another thing to note is that they're both at equal height on screen. If one was standing above the others, that would change the power dynamic. Well, throughout the fight scene, Stephen Chow uses a great variety of shots, but at the end, when we finally give the audience a chance to reevaluate the scene and its new power dynamic, the victorious main character is huge on screen, and he stands tall above his defeated enemies. Now let's look at character versus the world. In the movie Fargo, the visual storytelling includes a lot of shots like these. Wide-angle shots of a lone character in the midst of a wide, vast landscape. This is to depict to us, the audience, how weak, fallible, and doomed the hostage plot at the center of the story is. And we get a sense of that power dynamic between the characters and the world through the visual storytelling's use of on-screen size. Now, I know I'm being very reductive with this topic in terms of what goes into the visual storytelling. So yes, there's plenty more to learn on top of this, but this is a fundamental rule in visual storytelling. I'll flash through some editorial graphics from The Atlantic, The Economist, and New Yorker, and see how they all do this. They all use size to tell us a story. All right, now let's talk about the second tool, proximity. Proximity tells us if two characters are emotionally connected or separated. If the characters are close together, and especially if they face each other, then they're emotionally connected. If the characters are far from each other, especially if they face away from each other, or if they are composed in entirely different shots, they're emotionally separated. Do that enough over the course of a film and you've told a story about how two characters overcome obstacles to get close to each other, or how the obstacles overwhelm them and separate them forever. Every great romantic film you've ever seen does this, but even serious or violent films do this. In The Godfather, you can see this illustrate Michael's relationship with everyone around him. Notice how he starts close with his girlfriend Kay with the promise of staying out of his family's affairs. But he ends up ultimately separated emotionally from her when he becomes the family Don in those famous last shots. But even within a single scene, proximity tells story. In Alfred Hitchcock's Notorious, Cary Grant and Ingmar Bergman are agents infiltrating an organization of Nazis, but they fall in love before they can get an important assignment. Ingmar must seduce one of the Nazis. In the scene where Cary Grant has to deliver the mission to Ingmar, their budding romance is broken apart, and we can see that through primarily proximity. If you turn off the sound and just watch the scene, you can tell there's something wrong and they have to split apart. It's not a direct line though. They don't start together and end up separated exactly. Cary Grant enters the scene alone with the weight of the assignment on his mind. Then Ingmar enters and holds him, but something's wrong. As he tries to be stoic in delivering her assignment, they wrestle with each other emotionally until things break. They get further apart until they're in separate shots entirely. And by the end of the scene, they're on opposite sides of the room. Now to bonk you over the head with this, take a look at this Vimeo staff pick short film, Still. In the beginning, these two lovers are talking to each other over the phone, but they're visually presented on screen next to each other. But at the end of the film, it's revealed that they're in bed with their official significant others who are asleep, placing the two original characters on the opposite sides of the frame. The story here, the two lovers were close, but reality forces a wedge between them. In the end, the relationship is overcome by the obstacles. You don't even have to listen to the film. You could just leave it on mute for the whole 2 minutes. The visual storytelling is that integral and that clear. It's the power of proximity. So, do you get it now? Size and proximity, size and proximity. Power and connection, power and connection. That's the foundation of visual storytelling. Now, let's break into the second dimension, the subject's relationship to us, the audience. The tools are similar, size and proximity, so let's tackle the first one, size. If the character looks big to us, they'll look powerful to us. If they look small to us, they will look weak to us. So, how do we establish if a character looks big or small to us? Well, it's mainly about camera placement. If the camera's high up and we're looking down at our character, they're gonna look small and powerless to us. If the camera's low and we're looking up at our character, they're going to look big and powerful. And if we're at eye level, we feel comfortable and on equal footing with our character, like we are right now. Now, most filmmakers don't actually like to be just right in that middle ground, so at the very least, they will be slightly above or below eye level with the characters. And it's for that reason that the famous Western filmmaker John Ford said, as famously remembered by Steven Spielberg, "When the horizon is at the bottom, it's interesting. When the horizon is at the top, it's interesting. When the horizon is in the middle, it's boring as shit. When you're able to appreciate why it's at the bottom and why it's at the top, you might make a pretty good picture maker. Now get the fuck out of here." What John Ford is talking about here is the power of camera angle in terms of making our characters feel powerful or weak. Now, moving into proximity. If we are looking closely at our character, we will feel more emotionally connected to them. If we can only see our character from afar, we will feel emotionally detached from them. This is really about learning how to use close-ups effectively, when to use them, and how to use them. On the question of when to use close-ups, what I found is that a lot of novice filmmakers, myself included, neglected to give us enough close-ups, which means we, the audience, don't get enough chances to connect with the characters along their emotional arc. Let's take this scene from Toy Story. Close-up, we're connecting with Buzz so that the audience can understand his amazement. Then we cut to his POV, what he sees. Then we cut back to his and Woody's close-ups so we can reconnect with them and see their different reactions. Then we see a series of POV shots to see the different little games in the Pizza Planet. Then we go back to another close-up. Again, we're getting another chance to look into their faces, see what their emotions are, see how they're reacting to the new information. Boom, POV again, we see and hear Andy. Close-up, we see Woody's reaction to hearing Andy. And then we get another close-up to see Buzz's face to know that he has a totally different priority in this scene. Now yes, I'm using the term close-up pretty liberally here. Most of these shots would be considered more of a medium shot or a bust shot. But what I'm getting at is that there is this pacing or pentameter where we get to see our characters' faces and their reactions basically between every other shot. It's like POV, reaction close-up, POV, reaction close-up, over and over and over again throughout the entire film. Now, on the question of how to use close-ups, we want to focus on what John Hess over at Filmmaker IQ calls the emotive rectangle. If you look at the human head, the top half of it doesn't really have any emotional power. It's either forehead or hair. It's the bottom half of the head, where we have the mouth, the eyes, the nostrils. Those things can actually tell us emotion, whether that's flared nostrils because you're angry, or your eyes are pleading with guilt, or your mouth is curled in a snarl. See, this is what gives the audience an ability to understand what the character's thinking, what they're feeling. Now, the most important part of this is probably the eyes. I mean, imagine if we got a lot of close-ups of people's mouths, of their ears, of their hands, but we never got a close-up of their eyes. We'd never be able to really connect with our characters. It's so important that in a lot of close-ups, we can actually cut off the top of their head. We don't need to see their forehead or hair. We need to see, again, that emotive rectangle, the eyes, and any features on their face that are telling story. All right, so let's put this all together. Telling story through both dimensions, subject relationship to the world and subject relationship to us, the audience. If we frame someone in the center, they become incredibly powerful because they dominate the frame. It's like being center stage. A low angle shot from below the character in the center of the frame is literally the most powerful we can make them look. This shot from Tar is probably the most accentuated version of this. Look at how powerful she looks. We're looking up at her, she's towering over us, and she's in center frame. The world is about her. Now, if we frame our character at eye level, and we place them more comfortably in our frame, like on the third lines or the golden ratio lines, they balance with the context of the world around them, and so they look comfortable, evenly powered. Like us, right here. In this shot in Shrek, the two characters, Fiona and Shrek, are sitting on the third lines. They're comfortably balanced, we're at eye level. We feel comfortable here because they feel comfortable with each other. Now, what if we compress the subject, make them look small, shove them into the corner of a frame, and have all the context of the world around them in this picture here? They will look uncomfortable and under pressure. Add a high angle to that, and now they've become the most powerless they could possibly be framed. This shot from Mr. Robot is great because we're making Rami Malek look neurotic, worried, powerless. So, to wrap it up, storytelling is drama. Drama is conflict. We, as visual storytellers, depict conflict through size and proximity. On the first dimension, we depict the subject's relationship to the world around them, the characters around them, the objects around them, through size and proximity. In dimension 2, we also use size and proximity, but through their analogs of camera angle and the close-up, to tell the subject's relationship to us, the audience. The last thing I'll add to our visual storytelling lesson is understanding shapes. This stuff doesn't really cleanly fit into the whole size and proximity discussion, so it's not really something I can really include earlier in the discussion, but it's super important to understand how shape plays into our visual storytelling. I think the best example of how to use shapes comes in the form of how we present our characters. The main three shapes we have are circles, triangles, and rectangles. In animation, the cast of emotions in Inside Out is perfect for this discussion. Joy is energetic and excited, so her arms and legs spike out in triangular shapes, especially when she jumps, while her head and eyes are round, giving her a sense of approachability and softness. Sadness is totally non-threatening, very approachable, and so she's very round, including her glasses. Anger is much more strong, very self-confident, a little rough around the edges even. So they present him as a very rectangular character, and he's very thick. He's got very thick fingers, unlike Joy, who's got very slender fingers. This makes him seem very strong, maybe a little thick-skinned even. Shape immediately broadcasts these characteristics to us before they even open their mouths as characters, so they are incredibly important for us to understand as storytellers. Now, this doesn't just apply to animation. Think about how we use shapes to portray different live-action characters. Take, for instance, the detective character Columbo, played by Peter Falk. He's shorter, he's rounder, he's somewhere between a rectangle and a circle because he's supposed to look approachable and unassuming. On the opposite side of the spectrum is Benedict Cumberbatch's Sherlock, who is tall, he's got crisp clothes, he's got sharp lines, he's a lot more triangular. There's a danger to him, a sense of stark awareness. That is the power of shapes in your story, as well as the end of this lesson. Thanks for watching this episode of NODEHAUS Film School. If you want downloadable resources, be sure to check our Gumroad. If you want to join the conversation, join our Discord. And if you want more videos like this, always be sure to subscribe for more and hit the bell.